Hi guys, welcome to CSP 686, Chapter 1, Understanding Inclusion. This textbook is a lot more dense than the textbook that we used last semester. You're going to have to read this textbook and you're going to have to study it. You have a study guide that gives you specific quiz practice questions, and you need to be sure that you review the quiz practice questions for each chapter. I will do approximately a 10 to 15 minute lecture on each chapter, but what I'll be hitting is the high points, not the details. So you've got to study to the detail level because you'll have a midterm over chapters 1 through 6, and then you'll have a final over chapters 7 through 12. Each of those counts 20% of your grade, so 40% of your grade is a test over these 12 chapters. So be sure you take advantage of the review notes for each chapter. So chapter 1 is understanding inclusion. When we look at inclusion, and a lot of this is review for you, and you'll have it in every class that you're in, but when you get to comps, you'll be so glad that you had it in every chapter of every book that you ever had. So what we're looking at here is the definition from IDEA, and IDEA says that special education is specially designed instruction at no cost to the parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability, and it includes instruction conducted in the classroom, the home, hospitals, institutions, other settings, and it includes instruction in physical education. So let's just break this down real quickly, that what we're talking about is specially designed instruction. Instruction that is different from the instruction you're using for other students. Those of you that had the severe class first term, we found that sometimes instruction is going to be significantly different. Other times, and in this class where we're looking more at mild disabilities, we'll find that it may be just a matter of different presentation mode. It may be a difference in response mode. It may be differences related to learning style. But what we're going to be looking at is what's going to work for this child, not because of his label, but because of the characteristics of that specific child and how it affects his learning. The second part is at no cost to the parent. So the parent can't be charged extra for special ed services. And it's to meet the unique needs of the child with the disability. And so that's why we do individualized instruction plans, is because we're looking at specifically what does this child need to have access to the general education curriculum. So the question that you may have in your mind, and this is a really good thing to take a note of when you're studying for comps, is where in IDEA does it use the word inclusion? Anybody got it? You're right, nowhere. The word inclusion is not used in IDEA at all. And so where do we get this notion about what inclusion is? Well, it comes from part of the law where they talk about least restrictive environment. And so when we talk about least restrictive environment, what we're talking about is where can this child be educated that is as close to normal as possible. So when we're looking at LRE, we're going to look at where would the kid be if he did not have a disability. What is his neighborhood school? What is his age? Where does he live? Where do his brothers and sisters go to school? So if we didn't have a disability at all, whose class would he be in? Would he be in Mrs. Jones's class at Pierman? If so, that's where he should be if he has a disability. But there are some times where we have to put restrictions on a child so that he can have maximum access to the educational curriculum. So here are examples. An example of most restrictive environment. Let's say we have a student who has multiple severe disabilities, where he has specialized equipment, where he has a curriculum that looks very different from the general ed curriculum, and where it just isn't possible for him to get all of his needs met, then he may be in a self-contained classroom. This is often the case where you've got a child who's medically fragile, for example, where transportation for them is very difficult. The second one is a less restrictive environment. So let's say we have a student who has a specific learning disability in math computation, and when we get into math class, the general ed kids are just rocketing on, and he's getting further and further lost. So can we pull him out for direct math instructions, 30 minutes, three days a week, and he gets direct services for the specific skills that assessment has said he's having trouble with? That would be an example of a less restrictive than self-contained, but more restrictive than in the general ed classroom. And then the least restrictive environment is when the child is in grade level curriculum in a general ed setting, but he may have modification like extra time for exam or shortened assignments, or may have visual aids, or he may have auditory aids, or he may have accommodations of be allowed to use a calculator, or be allowed to use a word processor or a tablet rather than having to write his assignments out. The preferred setting is least restrictive environment. That's the preferred setting. For anything less than that, we have to have justification in the IEP as to why we would pull him out at all anytime during the day, and then we would have to have justification in the IEP if we're putting him in a self-contained classroom, which is defined as more than 40% of the day. Okay, a couple other things from your chapter that you need to know. Principles of inclusion. The principles of inclusion are that all learners have to have equal access. So what we want to have is a community of learners where everybody in that room is getting access to the curriculum, to the goals of the curriculum, and to the materials of the curriculum. Regardless of disability, regardless of language difference, regardless of socioeconomic status, we are a community of learners and everyone has access. Second is that we want to look at individual challenges and strengths and diversities. What's my challenge? Well, I have pretty significant attention deficit disorder, and so my challenge is organization. So whether you want to slap a label on me or not, you need to help me organize my notebook. You need to help me organize things to study, especially if it has to be memorized. My strengths, man, I am high verbal. You may have noticed that. And so how do you capitalize on my strengths? Well, I'm not terribly organized, but once I learn something, I can explain the stew out of it. So can you assign a shyer, less confident student who's very well organized to be my peer buddy, where I can be the spokesperson for the two of us, but she can help us stay organized? That would be an example. Reflective practices and differentiated instruction. You know, last semester when I kept asking you what's working, what's not working, what did you like, what did you not like, that I was modeling for you reflective practice of me hearing your voice and then me contemplating what that means. You'll see changes in this class this semester as a result of comments you made last semester. And then community and collaboration. For kids with significant disabilities, there are going to be other adults in the classroom with them, and so we've got to make sure that those other adults are part of the community, and we've got to make sure that all the kids in the classroom are part of the community of learners. Principles of universal design. There's a nice chart in your book about this. What we want to make sure is that when we're looking about the environment of the classroom, when we're looking at the materials that we're going to use in the classroom, our presentation mode, our response mode, that all of those have these principles of universal design. Equitable use, that everybody in the room with adaptation can use any material that's in the room. Flexible use, so we have things that can be used more than one way. An example of this would be our computers in our classroom. We can use them for speed drill, We can also use them for kids to be able to write their responses if they're not able to speak. Computers now, tablets, have software for kids who are nonverbal. We want things to be simple and intuitive. Kids should be able to go to the back of the room, pull out their folder, and know what to do. Perceptible information. Kids should be able to perceive from the patterns of what it is that we're doing, what it is they're supposed to do next. Teacher tolerance for error. We've got to teach ourselves and then teach the kids that it's okay to mess up. Again, those of you that were in class with me last semester, that first major assignment, what a mess that was. And guess what? Y'all said, that's okay, Dr. Hartley, just fix it. And I fixed it. Low physical effort. For a lot of kids, they get exhausted physically before they can cognitively click into whatever it is that you're trying to have them do. And so we need to minimize that where we can. Size and space for approach and use. We need to make sure that for each child they have enough body space and that they have enough space to use their materials well. Think about this for yourself. Have you ever been seated with somebody who's left-handed at a table to eat? You don't want to be on the wrong side of them. If you have a right-handed and a left-handed person on the wrong side of each other, then we get in each other's way. Same thing happens in the classroom for kids that have physical differences where they need more space, or emotional differences where they need more space. Again, we said we want to build a community of learners and an inclusive environment. And then last in this chapter, I want you to think deeply, and your book goes on for several pages about this, the impact of inclusion on general ed students, not just the students on the IEPs. In other words, is their world different because they have children in the room who learn differently than they do? How has it changed the way general ed teachers teach? How has it changed the way special ed teachers teach? And how has it changed the families of kids with disabilities? People, this is going to be a major, major piece for you when you write comps. I just finished grading comps this weekend, and as I was writing this slide, I thought to myself, oh, mercy, these people need to study this one. She said, giving you a great big hint. Okay, this is the big picture of Chapter 1. Be sure that you go into the study guide and that you use the practice multiple choice questions. I'm going to give you a major, major hint. Your midterm and your final exam questions are going to look real similar to what's in the study guide. You hear that? Real similar. Okie doke, that's Chapter 1.